I still remember the sound that the little velvet box made when I opened it. A soft click, like a whisper from the past. Inside there used to be my wedding ring. Gold worn at the edges, but full of memories that no one could ever measure. Or at least, that's what I thought, until I realized it was gone. It was a Sunday morning, and the sun had just come through the blinds, cutting across my kitchen table. I was sitting there with my cup of coffee, the same chipped mug I've had for years. It said, "Home is where the heart is." Funny how that line doesn't always hold true anymore. I'd been cleaning out my drawers, trying to make space, when I decided to open that small jewelry box. I wasn't even looking for the ring. I just wanted to see it, to hold it again. It had been a while since I'd taken it out, but when I lifted the lid, it wasn't there. At first, I thought maybe I'd misplaced it. I searched the drawers, the shelves, even the top of my wardrobe. Then the panic began to rise, the kind that tightens your chest before you even understand why. I checked again and again. Same empty box, same hollow feeling. That's when I noticed the small indentation on the velvet inside the box. The mark where the ring used to rest. I ran my finger over it. It was still there, cold and silent. I sat down, my knees suddenly weak, and whispered to myself, No, not that ring. That ring wasn't just gold. It was my life wrapped around my finger. My late husband, Tom, gave it to me when I was 22. He didn't have much money back then, but he'd saved for months, skipped lunches, took on extra work at the factory, just to buy it. He'd said, "It's not about the size, Mary. It's about what it means." And now, it was gone. I tried to calm myself. Maybe I'd moved it during spring cleaning. Maybe I'd put it somewhere safe, like I sometimes do. But in the back of my mind, a small, uneasy thought began to form. Something I didn't want to admit, even to myself. The last time I'd seen that ring was 2 weeks ago, when my son, David, had stopped by. He'd come in with that quick smile of his, the one that reminded me of Tom when he was young. But behind it, I could tell something was off. He'd been distant lately, avoiding calls, always in a rush. He'd said he was having money problems, but he didn't want to talk about it. That day, he'd gone into my room to grab his old jacket. I didn't think much of it. I trusted him. He was my son, my only child. Now, sitting at that kitchen table, that small memory began to sting. I wanted to shake the thought away. It was too painful, too cruel. My David wouldn't do that. Not him. But as I sat there, a knock came at the door. It was Linda, my neighbor. She's one of those friendly types who always has something to share. She smiled and said, "Morning, Mary. You okay? You look pale." I forced a smile. "Just tired, Linda. Been cleaning since dawn." She laughed softly. "Oh, I know that feeling." Then she leaned in and said, "You know, I ran into David yesterday. He was over at the pawn shop across from the diner. I didn't know he was into collecting things now." Her words froze me. I managed a small nod, but my hands started shaking. My mind began connecting dots I didn't want to connect. After she left, I sat back down, the house suddenly too quiet. The refrigerator hummed softly. The clock ticked, a pawn shop. I reached for my coat and purse without thinking. My body moved before my mind could stop it. The drive into town was short, maybe 10 minutes, but it felt endless. My fingers gripped the steering wheel so tight that my knuckles turned white. I kept telling myself, "It's not true, Mary. Don't jump to conclusions. Maybe it's something else." The little bell above the pawn shop door jingled when I walked in. The air smelled faintly of old metal and dust. Behind the counter stood a middle-aged man with glasses and a friendly enough face. "Morning," he said. "Can I help you with something?" I swallowed hard. I was wondering if anyone brought in a gold wedding ring recently. Plain band, worn on the edges. It has an engraving inside. Forever M&T. He looked thoughtful. "Hold on a second." He turned and checked a few drawers behind him. While he searched, I looked around, at the shelves full of watches, necklaces, old tools. So many stories sitting there, each one traded for a few dollars and a bit of regret. When he came back, he had a small tray in his hands. On it lay several rings. And there it was, my ring. It had the same tiny scratch near the edge, the same soft curve from years of wearing it. My breath caught in my throat. "That's it," I whispered. "That's my ring," he nodded. "All right, ma'am. I'll just need to see some proof of ownership. Do you have a receipt or anything?" I shook my head. "It's from 40 years ago. My husband's gone now. But that engraving, it's ours." He looked at me with sympathy, then sighed. It was sold by a young man about a week ago. Said his name was David. It felt like the floor disappeared under me. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The words hung in the air, heavy and unreal. "David," I whispered again, my voice breaking. He nodded softly. Said it was his grandmother's ring and she passed away. I remember because he said it so calmly. I even asked him if he was sure. He said yes. I could barely see through the tears that filled my eyes. I reached out, my hand trembling as I touched the glass counter. That's my son." The man's expression softened even more. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I really am." I stood there for what felt like forever. My legs felt weak, my chest tight. The world felt like it had tilted just a bit, enough to make everything uncertain. When I finally spoke, my voice was small, quiet. The kind that comes from somewhere deep and broken. "Can I buy it back?" He nodded gently. "Of course. It's still here. I'll need to charge what we paid for it. $180. I reached into my purse and pulled out my wallet. My hands shook as I handed over the bills. When he placed the ring in my palm, it felt cold. Colder than it ever had before. Like all the warmth it once carried had been drained out. I thanked him softly and walked out. Outside, the wind had picked up. The sky was turning gray, the kind of sky that comes before rain. I stood there for a moment, holding the ring tight in my hand, staring at the little engraving. Forever, a mentee forever. That word used to mean something, or I drove home. Memories flooded my mind. Tom slipping the ring on my finger. Our first home, David's birth, the laughter at the dinner table, all the moments that built a life, and how quickly one act could break it apart. When I got home, I sat by the window, holding the ring in my lap. The house felt heavier now, like it was full of ghosts. I wanted to call David right then to ask him why, but I couldn't. I didn't know what to say that wouldn't come out as anger or heartbreak, so I just sat there until the sun began to set, the gold fading from the sky. Just like the gold on that ring had faded over the years. And for the first time in a long while, I felt truly alone. The days after that dinner felt strange, quiet but not empty, like something was shifting slowly. My son started calling me again, not every day, but more than before. Sometimes it was just a quick, "Hey Mom, how are you?" Other times he'd stop by with groceries, saying he had extras, though I knew he bought them for me. I'd catch him looking around the house, his eyes landing on the places where things used to be. The photo of me and George on the mantel, the ceramic rooster that sat on the kitchen counter since forever. I could see guilt written all over him, and I let him feel it because sometimes that's the only way people really learn. But still, I didn't bring up the ring. Not once. One morning, about 2 weeks later, I woke up before sunrise. It was one of those chilly mornings where your bones feel the cold before your skin does. I made coffee, wrapped my old shawl around my shoulders, and sat out on the porch. The sun was barely coming up, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. It reminded me of the mornings George and I used to share before he went off to work. He'd drink his coffee and say, "Another beautiful day, sweetheart." I looked down at my bare finger again. I'd gotten used to seeing it that way, but every time I did, it still hurt. Like a bruise that wouldn't heal. That's when I heard footsteps. My son came up the steps holding a small box. "Morning, Mom," he said. I smiled softly. "You're up early." "What's that?" He looked nervous, Something I've been working on." He handed me the box. Inside was a simple silver ring. Not gold, not fancy, just a plain band with a little heart engraved on it. And inside, it said, "Always your boy." My throat tightened. "I know it's not the same," he said quietly. "But I wanted you to have something. I can't change what I did, but I can start making it right." I looked at him. Really looked at him. His hair had gray in it now, just like his father's did at that age. He wasn't that little boy anymore, but in that moment, I could still see him holding up his hand, showing me the ring pop he'd gotten from the candy store when he was 7. "Look, Mom, I'm just like Dad!" I smiled through my tears. "You'll always be my boy." I put the ring on. It wasn't the one George gave me, but somehow, it felt like love again. Maybe not the same kind, but a new one, made from regret and forgiveness. A week later, something unexpected happened. My granddaughter Lily came to visit. She's 16, full of life, always on her phone. I didn't think she noticed much, but she did. "Grandma," she said, sitting on the couch, "Dad told me what happened. About the ring." I froze for a second, then nodded. "Yeah, he made a mistake." She looked at me with those big brown eyes, so much like her father's when he was little. "He's been real sad about it, you know. Keeps saying he messed up the only person who ever believed in him." I sighed. "He's still my son. We all make mistakes." She smiled softly and said, "You're the strongest person I know." Those words hit me harder than I expected, because I didn't feel strong. I just felt tired. But maybe that's what strength really is. Getting up every morning, even when your heart's a little cracked. Later that evening, I was cooking dinner. Chicken pot pie, George's favorite. My son and Lily came over and we all sat down together. For the first time in months, the house felt full again. There was laughter, warmth, and a sense of something healing. After dinner, my son helped me wash the dishes. He said, "Mom, I've been going to meetings, trying to fix things in my life." I nodded, proud but quiet. "That's good, honey. You're doing the right thing." He hesitated, then asked, "Do you think Dad would forgive me?" I looked at him, my hand still in the sink. "Your father had a big heart. He'd be mad, sure, but he'd forgive you. He'd want you to forgive yourself, too." He smiled faintly, and I could tell he was fighting tears. That night after they left, I sat down on the porch again. The moon was out, bright and gentle. I whispered, "George, he's trying. He's finally trying." And for the first time in a long time, I felt a kind of peace settle inside me. Not because everything was perfect, but because we were learning how to love each other again, even after all the pain. The next morning, I decided to visit George's grave. It had been months since I'd gone. I packed a few flowers, white lilies, his favorite, and drove to the cemetery. The road there was lined with old oak trees, their leaves turning golden brown. The sound of the tires crunching on gravel reminded me of all the Sunday drives we used to take when life felt slower. When I reached his headstone, I knelt down and brushed off the fallen leaves. I placed the flowers carefully, then touched the cold stone. "Hey, love," I whispered. "I lost your ring, but I think I found our boy again." The wind blew softly, almost like a sigh. I smiled through my tears. "I know you'd tell me not to hold grudges. You were always better at that than me." I sat there for a long time just talking to him. About Lily, about the garden, about the silver ring on my hand. It wasn't the same, but somehow it felt right. Life doesn't always give you back what it takes, but sometimes it gives you something different. Something you didn't know you needed. When I drove home, the sky was glowing orange with sunset. I rolled down the window and let the breeze hit my face. It smelled like autumn and new beginnings. That night, I wrote a letter, not for anyone to read, just for me. And maybe for George. It said, "Love doesn't die when it's betrayed. It hurts. It changes, but it finds a way to live again. I folded it and tucked it inside the photo frame of our wedding picture. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. My old percolator gurgling on the stove like it used to when George was alive. I stood there for a moment, watching the sunlight spill across the kitchen counter. That golden light always reminded me of my wedding ring, the way it shimmered when George slipped it onto my finger all those years ago. That memory came back to me so clearly it almost hurt. It was a small ceremony, nothing fancy. We didn't have money for a big wedding, just a few friends. My sister as the maid of honor, and George's cousin who borrowed a camera that barely worked. But I didn't care. He was standing there in a worn-out suit that hung a little loose on his shoulders, smiling like I was the only person in the world. When he placed that simple gold band on my finger, he whispered, "This isn't much, but it's everything I've got. And it's yours, always." I laughed, and I remember saying, "It's perfect, George. You could have given me a twist tie and I'd still say yes." That ring never came off after that day. Not when I washed dishes, not when I worked in the garden, not even when I got older and my fingers started to ache from arthritis. It was part of me. That's why losing it felt like losing him all over again. As I stood there sipping my coffee, the house felt quieter than usual. I'd gotten used to the silence, but lately, it felt different. Like the quiet wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful. Maybe that's what healing sounds like. After breakfast, I decided to take a walk. I live in one of those small Midwestern towns where everyone knows everyone. The sidewalks are cracked, the mailboxes lean a little, and the grocery store still has a bell above the door that jingles when you walk in. On my way to the park, I stopped by the thrift store. I go there sometimes just to look. It's not about buying anything. It's about remembering. The smell of old books, the clinking of glass, the way time seems slower in there. There was an old woman behind the counter, probably close to my age. She smiled at me. "Morning, sweetheart. Haven't seen you in a bit." I smiled back. "Yeah, been a long winter." She nodded. "You doing okay?" I hesitated, then said, "Getting there." She looked at me kindly. "That's all any of us can do, isn't it?" I walked around the store, touching old lamps, faded dresses, picture frames. Then something caught my eye. A small jewelry box sitting on a shelf. It was scratched up, missing a latch. But there was something about it that made me open it. Inside was a simple gold ring. Not mine. I would have known it anywhere. But still, my breath caught. It looked so much like the one George gave me. I picked it up and smiled. The lady saw me holding it. "You like that one?" I nodded. "It reminds me of something I lost." She tilted her head. "Well, maybe it's a sign you're meant to find something new." I bought it. $3.50. I slipped it onto my finger right there in the store. It didn't fit perfectly, a little loose, but somehow, it felt right. When I got home, I sat on the porch again, holding my coffee cup with that new ring glinting in the sunlight. And I thought about how life has this funny way of giving you little second chances when you least expect them. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from my son. "Mom, Lily wants to bring you to her school event next week. Hope that's okay?" I smiled. "Of course, honey. Tell her I wouldn't miss it for the world." It felt nice, being thought of again. A few days later, Lily came over to help me bake cookies for her school fundraiser. She was wearing one of those big hoodies and humming some pop song I didn't recognize. "Grandma," she said suddenly, "Dad told me you used to make him homemade donuts when he was little. He said they were better than any bakery." I chuckled. "That's because I used to fry them in the old iron skillet. Everything tastes better when it's made with love and a little bit of grease." She laughed. "Can we make those someday?" "Of course, sweetheart." While we worked, she told me about her classes, her friends, and how she wanted to study art after high school. Listening to her talk, I realized how much I'd missed being part of their lives, For a while after everything that happened, I felt like a ghost. Like I'd been erased from their story. But now, slowly, I was being written back in. Later, when my son came to pick her up, he stayed for coffee. He sat at the kitchen table, fidgeting with his mug. "Mom," he said softly, "I've been thinking about something. About Dad's old truck." I raised an eyebrow. "The blue one?" He nodded. "Yeah, I fixed it up. Runs again. I thought maybe we could take a drive one day, like we used to." That caught me off guard. The last time we'd gone for a drive together was years ago. Long before the fighting, before the distance. I smiled gently. "I'd like that, honey." He grinned, relief all over his face. "Good, I'll come by Sunday." When they left, I stood by the window, watching them walk to the car. Lily turned and waved. My heart felt full in a way I hadn't felt in years. Sunday came, and sure enough, he showed up right on time. The old blue truck looked the same. Same dent on the door, same faded paint. I ran my hand along the side as he opened the door for me. "Ready, Mom?" "Ready as I'll ever be." We drove out of town, past the cornfields, past the old diner where George and I used to eat pie on Friday nights. The air smelled like rain and earth. It reminded me that no matter how much life changes, some things stay beautifully the same. After a while, my son spoke. "Mom, I never told you what happened that night I sold the ring." I looked at him quietly, waiting. "I was drowning in debt," he said. "I thought I could fix everything fast. I thought maybe if I just had a little more time I could pay you back before you noticed. But then things got worse, and I got scared. I didn't know how to tell you. I felt tears sting my eyes. You should have trusted me." He nodded. "I know, I was ashamed. I didn't want you to see me like that. Weak, desperate. You've always been so strong, Mom. I didn't want to disappoint you." I reached over and put my hand on his. "You already did. But you're here now, and that means something." He looked at me with those tired eyes. And for a second, I saw my little boy again. The one who used to hold my hand when crossing the street. Who used to say, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll protect you." Maybe he still was, just in a different way. We drove in silence for a while. Then he pulled over near a small lake, the same one George used to take us fishing at. We got out and stood by the water. The surface shimmered under the sunlight. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled something out. A small velvet pouch. "What's that?" I asked. He handed it to me. "Open it. Inside was a gold band." My breath caught. "It's not the same one," he said quickly. "But I had it made. I wanted to replace what I took from you. I know it's not the same, but maybe it can stand for a new beginning." My hands trembled as I held it. "It's beautiful," I whispered. He smiled faintly. This time I paid for it with honest money. I laughed softly through my tears. "That's a first." He chuckled, then said, "I'm sorry, Mom. Truly. I can't undo what I did, but I want to spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." I slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. Not the same gold, not the same story. But maybe that was the point. This one wasn't about George. It was about forgiveness, about moving forward. We stood there for a long time, watching the water ripple. The world felt quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. That night, when I got home, I sat by the window with a blanket wrapped around me, looking at the stars. I thought about how life changes us. How sometimes the people who hurt us are the same ones who end up teaching us how to heal. I whispered to the night, "Thank you, George, for giving me a love that lasted long enough to teach me how to forgive." And as I looked down at the new ring on my finger, I realized something. It didn't replace the old one. It continued its story. That night after my son brought me home, the house felt different. It was quiet, but not empty. There was a warmth in the silence, like the air was holding me gently, instead of pressing down on me. I sat on the couch with a cup of tea, the television murmuring in the background. I wasn't really watching it. My eyes were on my hand, that new gold band shining softly under the lamp. It looked strange at first, almost too bright for someone my age. But as I turned it slowly in the light, I realized something. It wasn't about replacing what was lost. It was about remembering that love, even after it breaks, can still rebuild itself in another shape. When I went to bed that night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept drifting. To George, to my son, to the years between when love was easy and when it got hard. There's something about the quiet hours after midnight that makes memories sharper. The sound of the clock ticking, the hum of the refrigerator. They become company when the house is still. I lay there thinking about all the things I never said out loud, like how I used to sit by my son's bed after he fell asleep, brushing his hair back from his forehead and whispering, "You're going to be someone good. I just know it." Or how proud I was the day he graduated, standing there in his cap and gown, looking so grown up but still searching for me in the crowd like a little boy. Somewhere along the way, life got busy. Calls became texts. Visits became maybe next weekends. And I never noticed how much distance had settled between us until it became normal. That's what hurts most. Not the moments that break you, but the slow drift that makes you think it's okay to stop trying. I turned on my side, facing the window. Outside, the moon was bright and clear. I whispered into the dark, "George, I hope you'd be proud of him, and of me." I didn't yell this time. I didn't turn cold. I forgave him. And somehow, I felt lighter. The next morning, I woke up early and made pancakes, just like I used to when my son was little. I didn't even realize I'd set an extra plate until I saw it sitting there, empty. Maybe it was just habit, or maybe part of me hoped he'd show up again. Around noon, there was a knock on the door. When I opened it, there he was. My son, holding a small cardboard box. "Morning, Mom," he said softly. "Can I come in?" "Of course," I said, stepping aside. He walked in, placed the box on the table and sat down. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept much. "I wanted to bring you something," he said. I opened the box carefully. Inside were old photo albums, the ones I thought I'd lost when I moved years ago. The covers were worn, some pages bent, but they were all there. Birthdays, road trips, Christmas mornings, backyard barbecues. "I found them in the attic," he said quietly. "I didn't even know I still had them." I smiled as I flipped through the pages. There was one picture, my favorite, of George holding our son when he was just a baby. George's smile was big and tired, his hair a little messy, and my son was laughing with his tiny hand gripping George's shirt. I traced their faces with my finger. "You were such a happy baby," I said softly. He smiled faintly. "Yeah, you and Dad gave me a good childhood." I looked up at him. "Then where did we lose it?" He sighed deeply. "I don't know, Mom. Life happened. Bills, stress, pride. I thought I had to handle everything myself. I thought asking for help meant failing you. And then one bad choice turned into another. Before I knew it, I'd done something I couldn't take back." I nodded slowly. "You hurt me deeply, son. But I see you trying now, and that means something." He reached across the table and took my hand. His eyes glistened a bit, though he blinked it away quickly. "I just want you to know I'm done running. From you, from my mistakes. All of it." I squeezed his hand. "Then stop talking about the past. Let's just live now." He smiled, a small, tired smile. But it was real. Over the next few weeks, he came by often. Sometimes with Lily, sometimes alone. We'd sit on the porch, drink coffee, talk about little things. His job, the weather, the neighbors, ordinary stuff. But it meant the world to me. One evening, he brought over a box of old home videos. We set up the dusty DVD player and watched them together. The screen flickered. Colors faded. But the moments were alive again. There was George, holding the camera too close. "Smile, Mary," he said, laughing. I waved, holding our baby, his cheeks chubby and red. Then another clip. My son, maybe 5 years old, holding a toy truck. He ran up to the camera and said, "I'm gonna drive real cars one day, Daddy." I laughed, and my son chuckled too, shaking his head. I was such a little dork. "No," I said softly. "You were just full of dreams." We watched for a long time, both of us quiet. When the last clip ended, it stayed silent for a bit. The room felt full. Not with sadness, but with something gentler. Finally, he said, "You know, Mom, I think Dad would be happy we're doing this." I smiled. "I think so too." Weeks turned into months. Seasons changed, and slowly the pain dulled, not gone. I don't think it ever goes away fully, but softer, like a bruise that doesn't ache when you touch it anymore. Then one day, out of nowhere, I got a letter in the mail. It was from the pawn shop. It said, "Dear Mrs. Miller, we wanted to inform you that the gold ring sold by your son 6 months ago has resurfaced. The buyer passed away, and her belongings were donated. We found your name engraved inside the band. Please contact us to reclaim it." I sat there staring at the letter, my name engraved, Mary and George forever. For a long time I just sat in silence. Then I started to cry, not loud but soft, like rain. That afternoon I called my son. "You might want to come with me somewhere," I said. When we got to the shop, the owner brought out a small velvet box. I opened it slowly, and there it was. My ring, the real one, the one George gave me, the one I thought I'd lost forever. I slipped it on my finger, and it fit like it always did. Warm, familiar, right? My son stood beside me watching. "You should have it back," he said quietly. I turned to him and smiled faintly. "No, honey. We should," he frowned. "What do you mean?" I took his hand and placed it on top of mine. "This ring isn't just about me and your father anymore. It's about all of us. The things we lose, the things we find, and the love we fight to keep." He swallowed hard, his voice thick. "Mom, it's okay," I said softly. "You've already given me something better than this ring. You came back." He pulled me into a hug, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself cry in someone's arms. It wasn't a sad cry. It was the kind that releases everything you've been holding inside. When we left the shop, I looked at the sky. The sun was low, casting everything in gold. I whispered to myself, "Welcome home, George." That night I placed the ring in a small box on my nightstand. I kept the new one too, the one my son gave me. 2 rings, 2 stories, side by side. One about love that began, and one about love that healed. Before I went to sleep, I wrote something down in my journal. Something I want my grandchildren to read one day. Sometimes forgiveness isn't saying what they did was okay. It's saying you won't let it define the rest of your life. And when I closed the journal, I smiled, because even though the past had broken me, the present had quietly put me back together. The seasons passed faster than I expected. Fall slipped into winter, and before I knew it, the holidays were here again. My son and Lily came over with a little Christmas tree, the same one he'd once said was too much work to decorate. This time. He strung the lights himself, humming along to the carols on the old radio. We hung ornaments, some from my old box, others handmade by Lily. She gave me one shaped like a ring, painted gold with tiny glitter on it. "This one's yours, Grandma," she said proudly, "so you don't ever lose it again." I laughed, tears gathering in my eyes. "Thank you, sweetheart. I'll keep it safe." That night, after they left, I sat by the glowing tree with a cup of cocoa. The house was quiet again, but it didn't feel empty anymore. I realized then that peace doesn't come from getting everything back. It comes from learning to live gently with what's left. Every night I'd look at my rings, both of them sitting side by side on the nightstand, and I'd smile. One reminded me of the love I had, and the other reminded me of the love that came back. Together, they told the whole story. A few months later, I started writing letters. Not the kind you mail right away. Just little notes I kept in a box labeled, "For when I'm gone." It wasn't because I felt sad or sick. I just wanted to leave something behind that said, "I was here and I loved you." I wrote one for Lily, telling her to always speak her heart, even when her voice shakes. I wrote one for my son. It took me 3 tries before I got it right. I didn't want it to sound like forgiveness because forgiveness had already happened. I wanted it to sound like understanding. It said, "My sweet boy, you were never a bad son. You were just a hurting man who forgot he was loved. Don't carry guilt longer than it takes to learn from it. Life will give you chances to be better. Take them. And when you look at your daughter, see me smiling through her eyes." After I wrote it, I felt calm, like a part of me could finally rest. One spring morning, I woke up early and decided to walk to the park down the street. The same park where George and I used to feed ducks on Sundays. The air was crisp and the flowers were just starting to bloom. I sat on our old bench, the yard paint-chipped and faded, and whispered, "We made it through, George. It was messy, but we made it." I stayed there a long time, just watching the sunlight dance on the pond. A little boy ran past me, laughing, his dad chasing after him. I smiled. Life keeps going. No matter how many pieces we drop along the way, somehow, it finds new hands to hold it. That summer, my son threw a small barbecue at his house. Lily was running around with a garden hose, soaking everyone. My son was at the grill, flipping burgers, his hair starting to gray, just like George's used to. He called out, "Hey, Mom, you want cheese on yours?" "Of course," I yelled back. "You know I don't eat plain burgers." He laughed, shaking his head. That sound, that easy, familiar laugh, filled something in me I didn't even know was still empty. Later that evening, after everyone left, I sat in the backyard swing. My son brought out 2 mugs of coffee and sat next to me. The sky was pink and gold, the kind of sunset that makes you forget how fast life moves. He said quietly, "You know, Mom, I think about that ring sometimes. I wish I could undo it." I looked at him and smiled. "Honey, we can't undo things. We just do better after them." He nodded slowly. "You've done better than I deserve." I reached over, took his hand, and said softly, "You deserve a second chance. You took it, and you made something of it. That's all a mother could ask for." He didn't say anything, just squeezed my hand. We sat there until the stars came out, 2 quiet souls who'd found their way back to each other after being lost for too long. A few weeks later, I got sick. Nothing serious at first, just a little tired, a little short of breath. The doctor said I needed rest, maybe some time off my feet. So I spent my days near the window, reading, writing, and drinking tea. One afternoon, Lily came over with a school project, a family tree. She sat by my chair pointing at the paper. "This is you, Grandma," she said proudly. "And this is Grandpa George, and this is Daddy. I put you both at the top because you started everything." I smiled and brushed her hair back. "That's right, baby. We did start everything." Then she asked, "Did you love Grandpa George a lot?" I nodded. "More than words can say." She thought for a second. "And Daddy, too." I looked at her, those same blue eyes I once saw in her father when he was her age. And I said, "Always, even when he didn't believe it." She smiled wide and hugged me. "You're the best grandma ever." And I thought, maybe that's all that matters now. To be remembered kindly. To have your love show up in the next generation. Time went on. Some days were harder, some were easy. But every morning I'd wake up, see the 2 rings on the table and feel grateful. Because even if the story wasn't perfect, it was ours. One evening, when the sunset turned the sky soft orange, I sat down at my desk and started recording something. My voice, for a video I wanted my family to keep. I said, "Hi everyone. If you're hearing this, it means I've lived a full life. Not a perfect one, but a full one. I made mistakes. I lost things, and I forgave where I could. But most of all, I loved. And I was loved back. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that love doesn't die when something breaks. It stays in the air, in the people you leave behind, in the stories they'll tell about you. So be kind, forgive fast, hug longer, and don't wait until it's too late to say, 'I love you.'" I ended the recording with a small laugh and said, "Now go like and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. You never know. It might help them find their way back too." Then I turned off the mic and smiled. The next morning I felt peaceful. The world outside was quiet, birds singing somewhere in the trees. I sat by the window with my coffee, the same way I had for years. The sunlight hit my rings, and they glowed softly, like little pieces of forever. I whispered, "Thank you, George, and thank you, my boy." And in that quiet, I felt it. Not sadness, not regret, but something like home. If my story reminded you of someone you miss, please like, share, and subscribe. Because love and kindness are the stories that never end.